Hello, everybody, and welcome today. My name's Danny Bertossa. I'm the General Secretary of Public Services International, and I'm going to be your host today. First, we'll have a few technical notes. We've got translation into French, English, and Spanish. To access these, please click on the globe icon, which is located at the bottom of the Zoom window. I think most people are familiar with this. But if you just click interpretation and then choose the language you want. So English, if you're an English speaker, French, if you're a French speaker, or Spanish, if you're a Spanish speaker. And this will enable the translator to provide you with the language that you need throughout the meeting. The meeting's a broadcast webinar. We want to focus as much of the short time we have on hearing from President Saunders. If you want to ask questions, you can put them in the Q&A function. We'll review them later and we'll get back to anybody who has questions that need answering. But right now, our topic is defending democracy, and in particular, how the US public service unions have fought back. And for PSI, this is really critical. We have 670 unions who are all our affiliates in 150 countries around the world, representing more than 30 million public service workers. And what we notice is that all around the world, workers are facing quite similar issues. We're seeing attacks on public services, we're seeing privatization, we're seeing outsourcing and attacks on workers' rights. And as well as that, we're seeing changes and attacks to sort of the social and economic fabric, increasing inequality, attacks on vulnerable groups like migrants and women. And what we've noticed is that this is not a coincidence. This is because capital and right-wing politics is becoming increasingly globalized. We're seeing the right organized globally. The billionaire class, who makes their money all over the world, takes their same agenda to all the countries in very similar ways. And the global structures that have been designed to regulate globalization too often aren't designed to respect the dignity of workers or the users of public service, but to protect the profits of these billionaire class. So at the moment, we're seeing both a shift in intensity and also the nature of those attacks. And I'll say a few words about that by way of framing up today's discussion. The long decades of neoliberalism that have put profits over people have created a lot of anger in the working class. And I think we've all seen that. And the new right are channeling that anger into really destructive and hateful politics. And the irony, we think, from looking at the international trends, is that the anger about these anti-democratic policies is now being used to fuel billionaire attacks on working people and public services. So what sits underneath a lot of our challenges is not only to fight these new attacks, but to make sure we don't seem like we're defending the old system that has caused so much of this inequality. Now, the boldness of these attacks are increasing, and we've seen this, for example, in Project 2025, which sets out in surprising detail what some of these attacks will look like. But we're also seeing it across the world. And if we cast our minds back to some events that seem unconnected, we can see the trend. Duterte was elected in the Philippines, then Orbán in Hungary, Erdogan in Turkey. We've seen Bolsonaro in Brazil, all of them normalizing these really anti-democratic rhetoric, but also action. And right now we've got Milei in Argentina, and of course, more recently, Trump, which is going to be the focus of most of our discussions today. But while the intensity is also increasing, the nature of the attacks are changing. And around the world, what we've seen previously is attempts to undervalue public services and whittle away at the state. And I think it's interesting, President Saunders published an article just last week called "Public Service Workers Deserve Respect," because there's been a long decades of undermining public services and the workers that provide them. And if you look on PSI's website, the catchphrase is, "We're the workers who make society happen." But too often that's invisible or deliberately been made invisible. And so in the past decades, what we've seen is radical neoliberal policy that's been used to frame public services as a drag on the economy to be minimized. But this agenda is now shifting a bit. And what we're seeing is this being taken a step further. We're seeing that the billionaire class and the authoritarian right not so much wanting to get rid of the state now, but as to radically transform it to serve their interests. And this is new and quite important to understand. We're seeing immigration agents of the state used not to support immigrants and to help them, but to attack them. We're seeing schools not being used to teach reason and critical thinking, but to promote ideological positions. And we're seeing billionaires get massive state contracts to prop up their profits and to support their monopolies. Whilst at the same time, they're trying to ensure that the state is controlled so that we can't regulate their monopoly interests, and often they're not taxed. So the attacks on unions in this context that we're seeing increasingly isn't a coincidence. We're being targeted as trade unionists, and particularly as public service unionists, because we represent the last line of defence. We're the people that can see what's going on with the transformation of the state. We can see the problems with these undemocratic trends, and we can see the way that they're being used to serve the interests of the billionaire and reactionary class. And we are the last line of defence against that transformation. So PSI is working with our affiliates to launch a public service fight back, because we think the threat's now existential. If we don't fight back now, and if we don't defeat them, they will try to dismantle us, and that's started. But we should also remember that not only are we the last line of defence, but we're also the first line of attack for a fairer, for a more just, for an inclusive society. And that vision is important to promote as well as we mount the struggle. So it's in this context that the fight in the US is really of interest to everybody, all of our affiliates and the leaders that have joined us today. And that's what we're interested in hearing about, and in particular, how the US unions are responding. And I don't think there are many people that are better placed to talk about this than Lee Saunders, the president of AFSCME. AFSCME is the American Federation of State, County and Municipal Employees, which represents 1.4 million public service workers all across the United States. And we're really thrilled to have President Saunders with us today. Now, President Saunders grew up in a union household. His father was a bus driver and an amalgamated transit union member. His mother, a community organiser and a professor. And from a young age, like really so many of us, his family and his experience in the community has taught him that collective action can transform lives. Since becoming AFSCME's first African-American president in 2012, he's led its 1.4 million members who are nurses, members who are sanitation workers, corrections officers, care workers, and so many others, I think with a rare combination of grassroots passion, but also strategic brilliance. President Saunders started his career as a Labor economist, as I did as well, which is perhaps why I enjoy hearing him speak so much, but he's used this background to become an architect of one of the most effective political operations in US Labor history. Because under his leadership, AFSCME has grown stronger through bold initiatives like Get Organised and AFSCME Strong, that organise workers, lifts their voices to deal with attacks, but also to be proactive and extend the rights and interests of working people. Now, The Nation magazine recently called him a working class intellectual. And I've got to say, I can't think of any greater compliment to pay anyone, really. And they also said he is a uniquely savvy political strategist, which is really what we want to hear about today, because it's easy to see why. So for me, finally, what's really critical is that President Saunders has really never lost sight of the rank and file members, the people who create the power of our movement, the people that we need to organise if we're going to fight back. So President Saunders, thank you very much for joining us today. I think at this pivotal moment, as public service workers are facing down the billionaire agenda that's threatening our communities, everybody on the call is very, very pleased to hear from you. So I ask everybody to please welcome AFSCME President Lee Saunders.
Well, thank you, Danny. Thank you for your leadership, and thank you for the solidarity that you've shown. And thank you to Public Services International for arranging this, I believe, very important conversation. You know, every day I have the privilege of serving as president of AFSCME. And you mentioned this, a union of 1.4 million public service workers dedicated to building communities that are healthy, that are safe, and that are strong. AFSCME members serve in many roles, We are nurses and social workers, school bus drivers and sanitation workers, first responders, and more. We run public parks, water plants, correctional facilities, municipal services, and state governments, and we do it with integrity. We do it with professionalism. Our services are diverse. Our impact is far-reaching. But if there's one thing that unites the AFSCME family, it's our willingness to get organized and fight like hell when our hard-won rights and freedoms are under attack. You know, for decades, AFSCME members have been at the forefront of the labor movement's struggle for civil rights and workers' rights and economic justice for all working people. And now we need to lean into that tradition more than ever, lean into that tradition of activism like never before. We are navigating one of the toughest political moments in our nation's history. I want to stress that. We are navigating one of the toughest political moments in our nation's history. Our government has been taken over by billionaires and anti-union extremists who are attacking us ruthlessly and relentlessly. They're getting workplace health, and safety protections. They're stripping federal workers of their collective bargaining rights. They want to install a new breed of political cronies across government whose loyalty lies with Trump and Trump alone. And now they want Congress to hand them more tax breaks, paid for by gutting Medicaid and federal funding for public services across the board. Now I could go on, but here's my point. We are witnessing Trump's radical Project 2025 agenda come to life, and you mentioned that in your introduction. The wealthiest people on God's green earth are doing everything in their power to kill our jobs, crush our freedoms, and silence our voices. There is no law they won't break, no democratic norm they won't destroy if it stands in their way of gaining more power. Now, we are determined to fight back with every tool that we have. In the courts, we are reminding the president that he may want to be a dictator, but the United States is a nation of laws. Our lawsuits have thrown sand into the administration's gears on multiple fronts, from Elon Musk's lawless intrusions into the Social Security Administration to their illegal efforts to shut down agencies where AFSCME members work, like the Voice of America, or that support the work we do, like the Institute for Museum and Library Services. Now, make no mistake about this. Whenever and wherever our members come under attack, we will defend them aggressively. But we can't rely on a defensive strategy alone, especially given what's going on in Congress today. We need to be on the offense. We can never forget that. And that's what AFSCME Go, our Get Organized campaign, is all about, going on offense. As you know, there are many anti-worker majorities. There are anti-worker majorities in the US House and the Senate that are advancing a budget that will gut Medicaid, an important program that supports many working families, food assistance, childcare, and other federal funding for public services, in jeopardy, all to cut taxes for billionaires and corporate CEOs. In the coming days, we'll find out just how deeply they plan to cut Medicaid. It could be $500 billion. It could be nearly $1 trillion. We don't know yet, but here's what we do know. Gutting Medicaid will wreak havoc on our entire healthcare system across this country. And because Medicaid is the largest source of federal dollars received by states, these cuts will blow up state and local budgets nationwide and put all public services on the chopping block, because states won't have the kind of money that they had before Medicaid being cut. As I've been telling my AFSCME siblings at town halls across the country, while Elon Musk gets more tax breaks, our members will face furloughs, our members will face layoffs, hiring freezes, and tougher contract negotiations when we go sit at that table. The threat we face at this moment is unprecedented. Anti-union extremists and their Wealthy benefactors are engaged in a coordinated effort to strip workers of their power and rig our economy even further in their favor. In times like these, I try to remember something that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said back in 1968 when he addressed AFSCME sanitation workers of Local 1733 on strike in Memphis. He said that only when it is dark enough can you see the stars. Well, there are certainly dark and uncertain times, and these are times where we've got to fight back like never before. But organizing has always been AFSCME's North Star. Organizing has always been the guiding light that has seen us through times of peril and emboldened our fight for progress. In organizing and mobilizing our 1.4 million members, along with the support of our allies in the labor movement from across America and around the world, is exactly how we're going to fight back now. We have faced big challenges before, make no mistake about it, but we have prevailed. The billionaires determined to take us out have failed time and time again because they have underestimated our capacity to organize, our capacity to mobilize, our capacity to grow. They've underestimated Americans' overwhelming support for labor unions and the freedom to organize. And they are underestimating us now. Through Get Organized, we will bring more workers without a voice on the job into the AFSCME family, make no mistake about it. We will train more activists. We will defend our democracy. We will stand up for the rule of law and for the public services that Americans from all walks of life count on every single day. Because we're AFSCME and we never quit. And our allies and our friends in the labor movement, not only in the United States, but around the world, never quit. And we look forward to working with you, sharing information with you, but more importantly, we're going to win. No matter how long it takes, we're going to win. So I look forward to the discussion, Danny.
Great. Thanks a lot, Lee. And we know you're going to win, and we're absolutely committed to supporting you. AFSCME has been a long-standing supporter of PSI and shown international solidarity for many years. And there's not a day goes by when I don't get calls or requests from our affiliates saying, how can we help? You know, what can we do to help AFSCME and our other affiliates in the States? Your point about organizing, I think, is the critical one. So many fights we've seen around the world, when they're on, it feels like an attack, but actually unions grow, their power grows, and members are brought in, and the union gets stronger. But only if the union responds in a certain way. And so you mentioned the organizing work you've been doing, and I think everybody on the call will be interested to hearing what are the strategies that have worked in organizing in the past and are particularly effective in mobilizing members. And what are the strategies that, what adaptations have you made, or what is different about these circumstances, and what's the same?
Well, we do consider ourselves to be an organizing union, not just today, but yesterday and tomorrow, where our number one priority is to organize new members into our union. But we've also got to make sure that we're educating and mobilizing and continuing to internally organize the members that we have across the country. And again, we've got 1.4 million members. We have a program called AFSCME Strong. We've been under attack before when the people have come after us trying to take our power away from us. In the public sector here in the United States, a Supreme Court decision took away our rights to have fair share in the public sector. So that means that you can receive all of the benefits of being in a public service union, but if you choose not to pay union dues, then you don't pay union dues, but you still receive those kinds and levels of benefits all across the country. When that happened, and it was the Janus decision of the Supreme Court, we went back to basics. Even before that decision was rendered, we knew that it was coming. And so what we did was we concentrated on communications and talking with our members one-on-one, our affiliates across the country, our leaders across the country, our stewards, our activists, engaging our members and having those one-on-one conversations, talking to them about the way that the union remains strong is if you're a part of it and you're active within the union. Danny, we had more than 1 million individual conversations across the country. Just wasn't the national union. It was all of our affiliates and our leaders doing that and buying in to that program called AFSCME Strong. And it continues to work. We have not walked away from that program. We still communicate every single day. You've got to have those kinds of conversations. And what's more important than sometimes having those conversations is to just kind of stepping back and listening to what our members have to say, or listening to what our potential members have to say about their union. And when you engage those members and potential members in conversations and talk about the importance of having a strong union and what that strong union can do for them, if they're a part of that union and participate in the process, we can move mountains and we can win. And so, quite honestly, even with the Janus decision, we've been growing because we have concentrated and continue to concentrate on having those one-on-one conversations with members. So we're growing both internally, where we're signing up those who were choosing not to pay into the union, but they're saying, this makes sense. And our livelihoods depend upon that. Our seat at the table depends upon us being active with our union and having a voice on the job. And externally, we continue to grow and organizing new members across the country. That's our number one priority. As I said before, we've got to, no matter what challenges that confront us, we've got to continue to organize new members into our union, and we're doing just that. And so matching up the organizing with communications, with explaining to members the challenges that confront us, and the way to overcome those challenges is to be as strong as we possibly can be, is a priority that we treat very seriously. And it works. Our program works. And so we still keep AFSCME Strong going every single day. But now we've moved on into AFSCME Go with the challenges that are confronting us. And our members, you can feel it and you can see it, where we are talking about bread and butter issues, the taking away of that table that they rely upon to negotiate wages and working conditions, taking away their voice on the job. They get that. Health and safety, their pensions, healthcare. So we can bring all of our members together. We are not a union that represents one kind of person with no differences in opinions. Our union has moderates, we have progressives, we have conservatives, we have Democrats, independents, we have Republicans. And what brings them together? What brings them together are the workplace issues and the issues that impact on them every single day. And that's what we're concentrating on right now, bringing them together and talking about those issues and talking about the fact that they can lose what we have been able to negotiate in the past if, in fact, we don't mobilize and organize our members across the country.
It's interesting you mentioned Janus, because I remember when Janus was being talked about as if that was going to be the end of the American labor movement. And some unions certainly struggled and others did a lot better. And I remember AFSCME doing very, very well out of that because of the reasons that you've said, being prepared, being organized, having those one-on-one conversations. And PSI is also committed to that. We've just launched an organizing fund, and we're increasing our organizing support to those unions around the world who need that support and can learn those lessons and can share with each other. Particularly, though, one of the things that's coming up is these really awful culture wars, they're called in some countries, or this attempt to create division and political division. And so I think everyone's interested in what you're saying about how you reach out to everybody, how you make sure everybody's included in those discussions. Is there anything in particular you've learned or anything you do, especially to speak to those members and potential members who may not see themselves as political and who may have heard about unions and feel that unions are in decline at the moment.
We talk about their issues and we make it personal. I mean, it's just as simple as that. Unions have the ability, we have the ability to change a person's life through better wages, better benefits, better health insurance, better pensions, health and safety provisions, having that seat at the table to negotiate those kinds of contracts that benefit not only our members, but their families and their communities across the country who rely upon public services. And you've just got to continue to hit it home every single day. And under the environment that we're in, Danny, we've had to make the really serious decision to concentrate more on those issues and not be pulled away from some issues that our members may care about, but could create differences within our family. Now, our members are individuals, and we try not, we don't take that individualism away from them. And they're going to have disagreements with the person working next to them on certain issues. That's healthy and that's good. But I think that our members stand up and look at their union and they say, you can bring us together in a common way around the issues that all of us associate with, that all of us care about. And that's what we're really concentrating on right now. I mean, we're concentrating on the fact that literally this current administration is trying to destroy us and take away that seat at the table. And that's what we lean into when we're talking with our members. And they make that connection no matter, what background they have or what political stripe they may be in. They connect themselves with that fight and with that struggle. And they'll say, we've got to fight for this. And that's what we've got to promote every single day. We are doing this, and I don't know how many town hall meetings I've participated in, or going across the country and meeting at our affiliate conventions and talking about this, having roundtable discussions. In Ohio, and I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio, and I'll just mention this, but this is being duplicated all across the country. We had a town hall meeting, and 4,800 members were on that phone call. And they were not only on that phone call to listen to what I had to say, but they were on that phone call because we were going to patch them through to their elected representatives to demand fairness and tell them, don't touch Medicaid and don't touch our rights and don't attack Social Security or our collective bargaining rights. And we're doing that across the country. I've got to tell you this, and I've been with this union for a long time, okay? Close to 50 years if I include my time as a state employee in Ohio. I was a child genius, so I started off at 2 years old, okay? But I'm telling you right now, I have never seen the level of engagement that I am seeing right now with our members because they understand that this is a real threat. And what we've got to continue to do is to engage them in conversation, to ask them, not to sit back on their hands, but ask them to do something. Call your congressional representative. Organize a rally in your community. Bring workers together. Go to those local meetings of the politicians and raise hell whenever they come back home. Do all of those kinds of things. And our members are doing it. And they recognize the threat that exists right now. And we just have to keep that up.
Yeah, and I think that's quite inspiring. I mean, we hear a lot about the problems. Trump is in our newspapers on our news feeds every day. And so we hear a lot about these things he's doing. We don't always hear about what's happening in response, other than occasional big rally that sort of seems to organize itself. But of course, we know that's not the case. There's a lot of work and organizing and one-on-one conversations that are going on behind that. But you mentioned a point about listening to workers and their issues, their pension systems, their social security systems. But our workers are a little bit different to other unions in that we provide services to the public. And that's why more than perhaps other unions, we target political leaders. what are you doing, and how is it? How are you dealing with those attacks to public services that clearly affect our members, but also affect the general public?
Well, we're educating. I mean, we're educating. We're not only organizing our members, but we're educating the public about what can possibly happen if funds are cut, if federal funds are cut. I mentioned in my opening remarks the importance of Medicaid and other federal dollars that move into our communities across the country. In states across the country, the average money that they receive from the federal government is about 33% that goes into their budget. 33% of their budget is made up of federal dollars. So can you imagine if those funds are cut? If Medicaid is cut, other programs are cut, that's going to have a direct impact on public services. Not only the ability of our members to perform those tasks, but you're going to have to cut back on public services. And that's going to cause havoc in our local communities across the country. And so we've got to engage our communities, and we've got to have an educational campaign going on saying, you're relying on clean water? Well, think again. You want to have safe roads? Think again. You want to have proper health care? Think again. You want to have good schools? Think again, because all of those are tied to some of those federal dollars that are coming in now that may not come in, that are in jeopardy. So you've got to make that connection. Now, who is best to make that connection? Our members who are providing those services. And when they're talking to their communities and those meetings at the community level, when we're talking about podcasts where we have members on talking about the importance of public services, having them appear on news shows in local areas talking about the importance of public services, we're promoting all of that. So people understand what this impact is going to be. So we're trying to broaden the support. And you better believe that citizens who rely upon public services and understand how important they are, that light bulb goes off and they get it. And they say, no, we cannot go down this path. But we've just got to continue that every single day. So it's not only an effort to educate and mobilize our own members, but it's an effort to educate and mobilize our communities who rely and depend upon public services.
Yeah, and it's early days yet, but so you're confident that the public is responding to the call and getting on board?
Well, I mean, we're developing the heat, okay? And we're turning up that heat, and the fire is hot. And if you're going to continue down the path of hurting us, then you're going to get burned. If you're going to continue down the path of attacking public services, you're going to get burned. Now, I mean, we've got work to do, and it's going to be tough. I want everybody on this call to understand that we are not taking this situation lightly, and we're going to have some defeats, but we're going to continue to work at it. But in the end, I am confident that we're going to win. And one of the things that we have got to do, and you mentioned this, a lot of our members believe that the union should be fighting for them, fighting with them at the bargaining table and helping them and supporting them. But when you start talking about politics, a lot of our members say, we don't want to, come on. I mean, let us think how we think. I mean, and don't try to shove anything down our throats. And we will never try to shove anything down our members' throats. They are individuals. They have different ideas. They come from different backgrounds and different settings, different parts of the country. But the link that we all have is that they provide public services. And they believe that public services are essential to the fabric of this country. And that's what we've got to make that connection. And then when we make that connection and then identify folks who are attacking public services, then that's when you can make the connection saying, well, maybe these folks shouldn't be around, whether they're Democrat or Republican or independent. And we've got to take some kind of action. So it's a step-by-step approach. Now, make no mistake about it. We're preparing right now for 2026, the elections, the off-term where you've got the Senate races, you've got congressional races, you have many local races across the country. But we're doing it in a way where we're educating our members, and we aren't leading with our chin saying, you've got to be involved politically, because a lot of our members don't want to be involved politically, but they do get the connection when they see that their jobs are in jeopardy or public services are being cut. And then we try to make the connection saying, now who's going to help us and who's going to hurt us? And I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat, if you're going to help us, then we're going to support you. But if you're a Republican or a Democrat, and you're trying to hurt us, and hurt public services and hurt what we've been able to win and gain for public sector workers, then we're going to do everything we can to hurt you. And that message carries, and a light bulb will go off in their head saying, you're right. I mean, that's, there's a connection there, but you've got to take it step by step by step.
Yeah. I said earlier on that the attacks that we're seeing from Trump in his first mandate and now, they're shocking and they're new, and I think they raised the bar for unacceptable behaviour all over the world. But it's part of an ongoing momentum that's been building in other parts of the world, and the consequences in the US are really serious for the workers in the US, but they have consequences for workers in the rest of the world, and we're a global movement. I think there's a lot of people around the world and people on the call who'd be sitting there thinking to themselves, this could come to my country, this could happen to us. What do we do to prepare? What lessons have you learned? What have you done that you think is important? You've mentioned some of those. Perhaps what mistakes have you made? What do you think? What would you like to tell the rest of the comrades who are out there, not yet where you are, but could be very soon? What sort of lessons do you think you'd like to share with them?
Well, I would suggest this to anyone, whether you believe you're under attack now or not. But sooner or later, those attacks are going to come. But you've got to prepare. And the way that you prepare is what we've been discussing on this call, where you educate and mobilize and organize your members. The only way that you do that, you don't do it by phone, you don't do it by leaflets, you do it by one-on-one conversations. I mean, that's the only way. And it's a program that is just not the national union or our affiliate leaders, trying to do that. We could never do that. 1.4 million members, we could never talk to everyone. But if we engage our activists and our leaders on the ground and our members and our volunteer member organizers, then we make a huge dent, and we have them talking to their peers at the work site. And that is so very important. And we've never walked away from AFSCME Strong ever since Janice, and we never will. That is going to be a program that will continue and continue and continue. Now, will there be modifications? Will we put new programs on top of that? Obviously. AFSCME Go is on top of that based upon the challenges that we face right now. But I am telling you that one-on-one communication, listening to folks, engaging them in conversation, and then having an ask and making that connection, it works. It works. And we've just got to get back to basics. This is not rocket science. Talking with folks and having communications and listening to what they have to say, that's basic organizing. That's 101 organizing. Yeah. And we've got to get back to that. And the other unions in this country are doing the same thing. Now, we work very, very closely with our partners at the National Education Association, American Federation of Teachers, Service Employees International Union, all public sector, strong public sector unions in this country. But we're also working very, very closely with our private sector counterparts and through the AFL-CIO, which we're a member of. But we're trying to coordinate our programs and coordinate our messages so working people are hearing the same thing. And we're focusing in on what is necessary to say to them that will open up their minds and say, hey, that's a good point. They're making a good point. And we need to engage in that, or we need to listen more. or we need to be more active because, I mean, these attacks are going to hit everybody. It's just not the public sector. It's hitting everybody in this country, both private and public sector workers. And we've just got to continue that momentum and continue those conversations and work jointly together. And if we do that and concentrate on identifying the issues, the real issues of impact on working families, and then develop an aggressive program in dealing with that, then, I mean, again, I mean, we aren't going to win every war and every fight, but I'll tell you what, we'll win a lot, and we'll be stronger, and we'll be stronger for it.
Yeah, I mean, I remember going out organizing workers myself, and they ask, you know, can you guarantee we're going to win? And the only thing you can guarantee is they're going to lose if they don't fight. That's the only thing that is guaranteed. I think there's a lot of senior leaders from important unions all over the world listening in to you here today. And the point you made about solidarity with other unions, I think is something that is quite important. PSI spends a fair bit of our time bringing together our affiliates in countries who represent workers in public services to talk to each other. And sometimes PSI national meetings are the only time that some of these unions talk to each other, because, you know, there can be competition, and we're all trade unionists. We understand that sometimes there are conflicts within the movement. So it's really interesting to hear you talk about talking to other public service unions. And I just wondered if there's anything in particular that you would say about doing that, or how you're doing that, because we all know that the US labor movement has not always been one big happy family forever, just like most of the other labor movements around the world. Is this changing those dynamics, and what are you doing? And secondly, you mentioned private sector unions, and sometimes we see private sector unions don't always understand the conditions that public service workers are under. Sometimes they think that we're a little bit of the elite, we do things a bit better than them. They don't always support some of our struggles. I just wonder how those relationships are going, and what advice you'd have to any leader of a public service union or a public sector union who's on the call thinking about some of these issues of labor solidarity when you're under attack.
Well, the four largest public service unions in this country are AFSCME, National Education Association, American Federation of Teacher and Service Employees International Union. And the principals and our top staff meet on a regular basis. We try to meet, the principals try to meet quarterly. We started doing this when we were faced with Janus, when we knew that working independently and individually would not solve the problem, and it would be best to come together and sit around that table and, you know, work out the differences we might have, and we've had differences before, but work them out because there is a bigger picture. And with what we did in fighting for a voice when Janus was moved by the Supreme Court, we decided, the four unions said, this works and this partnership works, and we're going to continue it. And to this day, we have those quarterly meetings. Right now, we've got a joint PR program that's taking place, the four unions, regarding all of the nonsense that's going on in Capitol Hill and the cutbacks in Medicaid and public education and things of that nature. All of us putting money into the pot to put it on the air in creative ways. So we continue to do that. We continue to sit down and talk, and that is extremely, extremely important. And you know, all of us have a commitment that we're going to do this in the future because it works. We sit at the table of the AFSCME, or the majority of unions are affiliates. We'll have our differences, but we're able to sit down at that table and we'll talk about it. And make no mistake about it, the private sector unions, when you start talking about the attacks on our rights, they know that it's inevitable, that sooner or later, the bad guys are going to come after their rights as well. And they're doing it right now, to be quite honest with you. So right to work, I mean, all of those kinds of things. So it's hard sometimes because we come from different places and we're going to have disagreements. But if there is a commitment to sit down and talk about it and educate folks about what those differences are, and then talk about what could the solutions to these problems be, then for the most part it works. I mean, and that's what we're trying to do. But I am telling you, with the public service unions who come together, the 4 unions, it has been a godsend. We would not have been as successful in defending our rights based upon what happened with Janice if we would have done it individually. But doing it collectively, that showed force, it showed strength. And let me say something else to you. From the politicians outside who are thinking about screwing around with us, they know that they aren't just screwing around with one union.
Yeah.
They're coming after those 4 unions in the public service when they attack public services. And they know that they are going to have hell to pay, and they think twice. And I mean, that's what we've got to do. I mean, we're coordinating our strength and our power to move an agenda for the public service members that we have within each union. And we're going to continue to do that.
That's fantastic to hear. I mean, that union solidarity in a time of struggle is what makes us strong. And it was great to see it happening with Janice. It's good to see it happening now. We're sure you'll continue the success. You mentioned political strategy before, and you also mentioned just then that when you come together with the principals and also at officer level, you clearly have your own industrial strategy to organize in the workplace. That's where we get our power from. But you've got to project that. And you've touched on it a few times, sort of the political strategy. And I think a lot of people from outside the States would be seeing Trump as a disruptor. They're seeing a lot of politics changing. Some things you can take for granted no longer quite being the same. Do you have any comments or any observations that somebody from the outside, sort of the subtleties that people might be interested in hearing about what's changed, if anything, and how you're responding differently, if at all, to some of these in the political game?
Well, the first thing you got to do is expand the involvement of your membership, and we've talked about that, where you've got folks that are making those phone calls, that are having those local rallies, that are raising hell at the in local sites across the country. I mean, you've got to be very visible, and people and politicians look at that. When politicians go home, meet them at their doorstep. I mean, meet them at those local unions where they're having trying to explain their position, and quite honestly, be disruptive at times in order to make your voice heard. And you're having that, and I think you're going to see more of that taking place in local areas across the country. Having those demonstrations and those rallies, not just in Washington, D.C., but just as important, having them in the local communities and having your communities engaged in those rallies and educating and mobilizing your communities. I mean, you're making your voices heard every single day and making that connection every single day. And then I think that we've got to prepare and engage, and we've got to take it a step at a time. But the way that we're going to be able to make change is not only to grow our power and strength, but we're going to have to also change the political climate. And the way you do that is through elections. And again, you've got to take that step by step, because a lot of our members still think that, that's a dirty word. But it's connected. And we've got to make that connection for them at times, so they'll say, you're right. I mean, there's another piece to this puzzle, and that piece of the puzzle is electing our people who are going to support our needs. And so we're trying to do that, and we're going to be concentrating on the 2026 elections and highlighting the damage that some of these folks have done who are going to be up for election in 2026, and making it real clear that they've done damage to your benefits and to your work life and to public services, and they've hurt you and your communities and your families. And if you sit back and not engage in that process and not participate in the electoral process and push somebody who's going to support our efforts, then that's a big piece of the puzzle that's missing. But you've got to take it gradually. You've got to take it step by step, so so people understand that connection. Are we going to get 100% of our members getting that and understanding it? No, you aren't. I mean, you'll still have folks say, we don't want, politics is a dirty sport, we don't want to be a part of it, but at least you're growing the number of people who get that connection and understand that we've got to engage in politics in that kind of way. And it's just not Democratic politics. It's just not Republican politics or independent politics. It's supporting those individuals who are going to support the work that we do, support public services, and support unions across the country.
Yeah, that idea of changing the political climate is so important. And I remember again out being an organizer, you'd organize workers, and if you have a win, that's fantastic. They understood the power of the union. If you had a loss or it was a bit of a mixed bag, it was an opportunity to educate about how some of the rules are rigged against workers and rigged against unions, and why we need to engage politically to make sure those rules are fairer, to change the political climate, as you said, and to be disruptive. I like that. I don't know who it was who said all politics are local. But it's true. Anyone who's been a practitioner of those dark arts will tell you all politics is local. So we've got to be there locally and building up from the bottom. Now we're almost out of time, and I've got one more question before I give you the chance to say any final remarks. Everybody on this call and all the people that speak to me are interested in learning from the struggle in the States, interested from learning how unions like AFSCME and also our other affiliates like SEIU and AFT that you've mentioned, how they are fighting back. And I think that is becoming more and more urgent. So sharing and learning from you is going to be more important for us. And as I said, we launched the organising fund and we're going to increase our organising work. But what they also ask, what can they do to help? And you've spent a lot of time sort of saying that, actually you've got to do your own organising. You've got to be on the ground with your own members. But is there anything that we can do, or is there anything that you think that people could do if they wanted to lend support or to assist in this time? Because AFSCME over a long period has helped a lot of unions, and there's a lot of people who want to help AFSCME and also want to help our other affiliates like AFT, NNU, SEIU. What would you suggest people do if that's what they wanted to do?
I think that what other unions across the world can do is to show that this is not just a problem that's in the United States, that you may not be feeling it now, but sooner or later the show is going to come to you. And in order to try to stop that, what we've got to do is stop it here in this country and stop it in other countries where they're trying to do the same thing. And the only way you do that is through solidarity and unity, and saying we will not put up for what's happening in the United States or anywhere else across the globe. We've got to stand up, and workers have got to stand up and fight. And so it's about educating. It's about, maybe getting out and saying, because it is going to come. If we fail in this country, it's going to come quicker and faster. And so workers can get out and raise hell right now and not wait until somebody is trying to attack you, but go on the offensive yourselves and say, this is what workers need. And this is what we're fighting for, and grow your movement. Grow that movement so you are prepared when this happens to you. And that is the best way that we can stop this. I mean, this is going to be a worldwide. You're going to have these folks coming together saying, okay, we'll be able to do it in the United States. We're going to be able to do it in Canada or Germany or, anywhere else. And we can't let that happen. So, we've got to pay attention to what's going on now, but we've also got to plan and say, let's get on the offensive right now. And let's hurt those who are trying to take away our rights and our freedoms, and let's support the ones who are trying to help us. And let's build our union through the kinds of communication, that one-on-one communication, that member-to-member contact, where people understand and get this. Where this is not a movement that just exists in our country. This is a worldwide movement. And the support that you can get, it seems to me, because the crisis will continue And those threats will move from country to country to country if we don't stop it here. And if we don't stop it in other countries, or if we don't send a message saying, do not bring that bull to our doorstep.
Absolutely.
And that's what we've got to do. I mean, and so it's, you know, we understand the importance of having not only unity within our country with the labor movement, but solidarity throughout the world, because we know that this is just not our problem. And other countries are experiencing that problem as well, but it takes a unified labor movement around the world to deal with it.
Absolutely. I'm going to wrap up now. We're getting close to the top of the hour, and then I'm going to throw back to you to give the last word. I want to thank you personally for making time available, and thank AFSCME as well. I think that point that you make, that often the best way to show solidarity and help others is to strengthen yourself, because our enemies are global, and every time there's a loss somewhere, it weakens us all, especially now at the moment where it's normalizing some very bad behavior and some very bad politics. And every win gives hope to workers in your community and in your country, but also all over the world. People hear about these wins, people are excited by them. The second thing I wanted to say is that there is a narrative out there that countries are in competition with each other. And a lot of the way in which the US government maneuvering is being portrayed in other countries is that somehow workers are in competition with each other. We've seen the trade disputes with Canada. In my own country, in Australia, there's these discussions. In Europe, Vance has said some really pretty offensive things that really look designed to create tensions and conflict that, of course, we know the right-wing sorts like. And so I think worker solidarity, the idea that the government of the US might be saying things that the government in Europe don't like, but actually the workers are on the same side. We have the same interests. We all benefit from a peaceful, prosperous world, from justice, from redistributing wealth, and from workers' rights. And that solidarity that you've spoken about is really, really very important. Workers have more in common with each other across national borders than we're told. And fighting that narrative everywhere, I think, is very, very important. And the amount of solidarity we've seen expressed for the workers, and particularly your members in the US, I think demonstrates that's live and well. So thank you very much for coming here today and sharing the lessons with us and continuing to build that narrative. We've got a couple of minutes left. I'm going to throw to you for any last words.
Okay, thanks, Danny. Let me just thank you and the worldwide labor movement and public services for being on this call and supporting us. We are a family, and we always have got to recognize that. We have more in common than we do than we have not in common, and we should concentrate on those things that we have in common. And let me tell you something, and I want to be perfectly honest. This show can come to you. What we're experiencing here in the United States can come to any one of you on this call. So we've got to work together. So let's do this. I think that what we've got to do is lift up what these attacks in the United States mean for workers everywhere. So there's a connection. And people say, oh, it can happen. It can happen here. So thanks for the work you'll continue to do to stand with us, but also to fight back against this global assault. And it's a global assault on working people. And your solidarity across the world makes our movement stronger and shows public service workers across the United States that we are not alone, We've got support worldwide. The struggle for dignity, struggle for respect, and the struggle for freedom. We must never forget that public service workers are the backbone of not only this country, but our countries around the world. We're the ones who keep people safe, who respond in times of crisis, and who never quit on our communities. And our commitment to professionalism, integrity, and the rule of law is vital for the survival of democracy itself. Our communities are depending on us right now to take action, all of us, collectively. They're depending upon us to build the global labor movement so that we can have the strength and numbers we need to keep people strong, to keep our unions strong, to keep public services strong, win respect for workers, and put people over profits. Simple as that. Now, we have a tough fight. We all know that. And things are not going to get better anytime soon, but we're going to be working like hell to make sure that we're engaged in this battle. And in the end, we're going to win. Things are likely to get worse before they get better, but make no mistake, we are equipped for this moment. We have prepared for this moment. We have experienced similar moments before in our past. And there's no power stronger than working people coming together. And when we do that, simple as that, we win. We win. So let's all come together and let's engage in battle like never before.
Thank you very much, President Saunders. We're behind you. We will win.
Thank you. Thank you. Good talking to everybody.